I'm Muermishvili here in Tbilisi, Georgia, where I had the opportunity to talk to two Baltic leaders about Russia's war in Ukraine and upcoming US elections. Marko Mihkelson is the Estonian Parliament's Foreign Relations Committee chairman, and Rihards Kols is a member of the European Parliament, formerly Latvian Parliament's Foreign Relations Committee chairman. This is what they had to say. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us today at this beautiful venue in Tbilisi, Georgia, at the conference. I would like to, because you both represent Baltic countries, I would like to start from the Baltic perspective on what's happening regarding Russia and Ukraine and your outlook as to how you see the war in Ukraine. What happens if Russia wins the war? And what happens if Russia loses the war? If we could start with you, please.
I think answer is rather simple. If Russia succeeds in its efforts to destroy Ukraine's statehood, but this is their sort of ultimate goal, then it comes to question of their aggression against Ukraine, then obviously they won't stop there. As Putin has declared openly, that Russia's strategic goal is to not only change geopolitical reality in Eastern Europe, but to change the world order. And this is why they are building a sort of alliance, or they try at least to build sort of an alliance with China, with Iran, North Korea, and as we know, they are very much interested to fuel up tensions in the Middle East, in the Sahel region. Obviously, in interest of Russia is also tensions in East Asia. And this is why we argue, and also perhaps we have to realize those who tell us that, you know, we have to be careful deterring Russia because that might escalate situation and then we might end up in a World War III. Then I argue that if we don't today help Ukraine to win in this war, then we easily can witness that we are suddenly in a major global conflict. And vice versa. If Ukraine will win in this war, Russia will be defeated, strategically defeated, meaning winning in this war, for me at least, is that Ukraine restores its sovereignty over territory and international borders, which are recognized from 1991. Plus also Ukraine will be invited to become member of NATO. And that will help us, obviously, to change geopolitical calculus, not only in regard of Ukraine, but also in Belarus and Georgia.
Rihards, what's the situation as Latvia is looking at Russia? What are your biggest concerns, again, in the prism of Ukraine war?
Right now, the most important thing is to implement NATO summit decisions in practice. One thing is to have on a paper, that is to boost the defense capabilities, both in Baltics but also widely in the region, including Sweden and Finland as well. That will take not only time but also considerable financial resources as well. That means there's a clear recognition within the governments, within the parliament, on the continuous increase on defense expenditure as well. And of course, well, on top of that, you mentioned the domestic dimensions. And actually, there's still very high support within the society supporting Ukraine, more than 80%. There are, you know, who are trying to spread the narratives of Kremlin that there is a war fatigue by different means and in different ways. But we're going ahead. We actually, what we are doing is actually physically militarizing our border. That is a clear signal that we are ready for the potential aggression. It's not only theoretical right now consideration, but practical. And of course, what we see right now at the border with Russia is we're laying out the anti-tank mines. We are putting the Dragon thieves and so on, and it's a necessity to be done. It's showing that we mean what we say, and that is a deterrent already by other means and scale. But this is something that mainly is actually a signaling to our colleagues within Europe. Because if you go to Luxembourg, you have a colleague who's complaining that he suffered too much already during the Cold War. And you sit and you puzzle. How did you suffer? Please elaborate.
In Luxembourg,
yes, and well, the sausage was, more cheaper or something like that. No, this is a challenge that we're having within Europe. It's the defense military industry, its capability to produce, to deliver. Yes, we have one commitment announced after another, but we lack on delivering on those commitments.
That's exactly what I want to ask you from the EU perspective now. We're hearing about this money that's available, but that's not
It's too little. It's
too little, but it's not even present, right? It's not being
1.5 billion. It's for the Europe's defense initiative program. What is also unpleasant news that our strategic partners across the ocean are excluded in participating in those programs. That is short-sighted. That is something where, somebody who's bragging about the strategic autonomy is actually pushing its national interests. I will not name which, but there are not numerous countries in Europe that are capable of delivering on those means that Europe needs right now, especially when it comes to air defense. And this makes us really dependent on the U.S. Not in a bad way. It actually can help in a domestic discussion in the U.S. We've been extensively traveling to Washington this year and last year alone as well, particularly engaging with those representatives of the Congress that are maybe hesitant or negatively lean towards Ukraine, particularly arguing on those things where they're misled with disinformation, particularly, for example, who?
By whom, yes.
Well, there are, just pick up the voting list on the supplementary item on Ukraine. They're there. 122 Republicans. Those are the ones we have to continue to work with. There's so huge disinformation spread, and be it even from domestic media, Tucker Carlson, right, spreading as well. Elon Musk with Twitter actually emphasizing that. It's very interesting twist. Sorry for citing from the topic you asked, but you saw how Elon Musk was, Twitter is dominated with Russian trolls. Right, and he's somewhat as well leaning in the side of Republicans, Trumpist way, and so on. But now, when the country is shutting down Twitter, he's calling to sanction that country, Brazil.
Let's leave that part aside for a different conversation, but come back to the issue that you raised, the issues that you're seeing from over the ocean. America has elections coming up, and the two candidates, we know who they are. What's your perspective on what the foreign policy could be of if Trump is elected or if Harris is elected? Do you have an outlook, and do you anticipate and prepare for either one of those?
Obviously, from the end result of U.S. elections, will depend a lot what kind of policy is carried out towards allies, towards Ukraine, and what can be done, let's say, differently than up to this moment. I argued today here, and not only here, during different meetings, also in the United States and then European capitals as well. And this is not only the question to the United States and the next administration. It's about coming back to this very first question you said, do we, as allies, are on the same page or not? And unfortunately, I must say, we are not on the same page. We are not on the same page with strategic goals, what we have to agree upon and then to implement it. And think about, we still don't say the same way in Washington and in Tallinn or in Riga that Russia must be defeated. We say we don't hear this in Washington. So if you don't have the kind of the clear vision, what should the end game, then obviously the policy is also not fully directed to that goal, or the question of Ukraine's membership in NATO. I must say the NATO summit in Washington was unfortunately failure, and I don't see in that regard failure, that we gave Russia against signal that we are afraid of Russia. We try not to somehow consider their worries, and so it's I hope that those who will be in either administration understand that from outcome of a war in Ukraine will depend also the future national security of the United States. When it comes to the question of China, when it comes to the question of the Middle East, Sahel region, and so.
There is a conversation now at this conference, as well as Poland is very actively voicing this idea that maybe it's time for NATO to start protecting Ukraine's skies from the NATO territory, but make sure that certain incoming missiles, at least, that may be threatening NATO should be shut down. Where do you stand on that, proposal?
Are becoming new news. Actually, the Baltic countries were the first actually calling for no-fly zone right after 24th of February. We were ridiculed in so many different ways. That is being raised. Of course, right now, when we have those, I will not call them incidents, some intentional actually testing. What are the limitations? So what is the response from the NATO countries? It's not only Poland, it's Romania, it's Moldova. There's casualties, actually. Yes. It's not just, somewhere in the field. There's in Poland, if I'm not mistaken, two farmers were killed as well. So I think it definitely has to be in the range of, and that's, we can explain by international law as well, protecting our airspace as well. And that's, concluding all the way, I think, till Kiev. That is the range that we should announce that is this airspace that we're going to protect. Any projectile launch from Russia will be shut down.
Do you think consensus could be reached on that?
Well, the question is, at some point, it doesn't have to be consensus. Even providing military assistance to Ukraine is not consensus-based. It's actually individual member states of NATO are delivering. It's their own national decision. And here as well, if Poland decides, well, they soon will have enough Patriot systems as well. I hope they will start to produce Patriot systems in Poland. That is also coming back to the military industry complex. But I think on what very well put Foreign Minister of Lithuania just recently, Landsbergis, is that we do everything to protect the legitimate targets in Russia rather than people of Ukraine. And that is something that needs to be, I mean, he really put it out as it is.
And would you add to that, and also maybe add the whole concept of not allowing Ukraine, on top of that, it's also a big topic, but on top of that, not allowing Ukraine to use some of the Western, especially American weapons, long-range weapons, to use them against military targets in Russia. What's your position on that?
Absolutely. You cannot fight the fight hands tied behind your back. Ukrainians actually do miracles. And then I was just a few days back in Kharkiv region, and also Sumy region, I met those who fight on Russian territory right now. When I asked, what do you need? They said two things. First, don't please make any limitations and ask us to fight this fight. We can win. We show in the Kursk area that we can move on if we have enough capacity for that. And secondly, give us the right to destroy Russian airfields in close vicinity, 300 plus kilometers to the Ukrainian borders. There are 22 airfields they use to shoot gliding bombs and other stuff against Ukraine. So that is simple issue to do, and that is not escalatory. The Ukrainians have shown crossing border and starting the war on Russian territory that is exactly what should be done in order to make breakthrough in this war that should lead to the the victory of Ukraine. And last but not least, also deliveries. We have promised, I mean, collectively a lot, including America. And Ukrainian colleagues showed me the list of those items of military equipment which was promised in April. And up till now, behind of those promised numbers which have been delivered are zeros on many items. So you cannot fight the fight if you are promised some help and you don't know when this help will come.
Mm-hmm. You wanted to add something?
Yeah, well, von der Leyen said that she's going to build the umbrella, the air defense. Then we look at the Cold War, and actually you can see the West, I mean, how many batteries of rockets they laid out next to the Iron Curtain. Mm-hmm. Hundreds, in their hundreds. And they weren't afraid of escalation. They did it because it's a necessity. So right now it's actually the arguments talking about the Baltic countries. Russia hasn't relocated its batteries to aim at Baltics. Actually, still the batteries are in range for the countries actually on the other side of the Iron Curtain. That is Germany and so on. So this is right now a necessity already to reinstate those rocket systems, defense systems, along the historical line, because even Russia launches the rockets, those are not for the Baltic countries.
Yes.
It's sorry, but it's a fact. Maybe it's good for us, but it means, well, it needs to wake up the defense industry, absolutely. The renaissance has to happen.
What is it that you want to see coming from America? If you could summarize maybe 2-3 points, what would those be?
One very clear understanding that in the interest of the United States is, together with allies in Europe, help Ukraine to win in this war. Because this is not a regional conflict. This is not something you can really park somewhere. Or make some Minsk-free agreement again. So you have this war should end with a clear victory of Ukraine, and Russia must be defeated. This is a unique moment for the United States as well to regain serious leadership in the world, and also, as I mentioned earlier, that will make much easier to balance growing power of China in the future. If Ukraine is defeated by Russia, the challenge for the United States will be much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
how about you?
Well, I'll turn around the question. I will say what I don't want to see. I don't want to see further push for isolationism in U.S. Politics, because what the history has shown, the policy of isolationism is the choice of losers. And what we have seen for the past 8 to 10 years, U.S. is on that track, unfortunately, both in relations to the EU, to its allies, and so on. So this is something that I don't want to see in whoever takes the office after the 5th of November, that U.S. is actually embracing the partnerships and working with allies.
I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And it's great to see you in Tbilisi.
Thank you.
Thank you.